What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be going through every NBA team's most likely trade candidate starting in the Eastern Conference. The Western Conference video will come out soon, but before we start, make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. The first team up is the Philadelphia 76ers, and the most likely player to get traded is Quentin Grimes. Grimes is an unrestricted free agent after his camp, and the Sixers were unable to agree on a contract extension in the offseason, and they're basically gonna lose him for nothing unless they trade him right now. The only trouble with trading him now is teams will be hesitant to give up anything too valuable for a guy they could lose for nothing in a couple of months in free agency. But contending teams that need a scorer off the bench can take a swing at him. When it comes to bench scorers in the league, he really doesn't get much better. We've seen last year he's capable of exploding for 40 points on any given night. With the Sixers' crowded backcourt of Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe, with Jared McCain off the bench, it seems like he's getting squeezed out of Philadelphia. He's not quite big enough to run the three, especially with an undersized Paul George at power forward. Moving on to the Milwaukee Bucks, and the player most likely to be traded by them is Kyle Kuzma. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and the Bucks are extremely desperate to put a competent team around Giannis. I would be extremely surprised if he gets traded. Miles Turner just got there. Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. pretty much untouchable. So it was really between Kuzma and Bobby Portis, so I decided to go with Kuzma. Portis may have more value on the market, but I'd be willing to part ways with Kuzma way more than Portis. Kuzma isn't having the greatest season, and is not a perfect fit in Milwaukee with his defensive issues and poor shooting, but a defensive-minded team that struggles offensively could give up quite a bit for him, or a rebuilding team that probably will take on his contract if Milwaukee gives up draft capital. The next team up is the Chicago Bulls, and the player they should be trading is Nikola Vucevic. I don't think Vucevic gets traded at the deadline, knowing Chicago, but keeping him any longer is really a death wish if you're the GM of the Bulls. It's better to wipe your hands clean of that 2021 team. 4 out of the core 5 guys have been traded for nearly pennies on the dollar, except for Caruso, who landed them Josh Giddey, but everyone else were traded for about 1 first-round pick combined. So waiting even longer to trade Vucevic could cost them a lot of assets. Vucevic is a shooting big that also grabs a lot of rebounds, and he also has great touch around the rim, but he does struggle defensively. But there's no way someone like Golden State can't give up a first-round pick or a young player in return. Moving on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the player they are most likely to trade is Jarrett Allen. After the Cavaliers' disappointing start, with only a couple of games over 500 at the mid-season point, it's clear something has to change. And a guy as a consistent 15 and 10 on insane efficiency that can anchor an elite defense that's in his prime can't get you a lot in return. With Evan Mobley being a primary center coming into the NBA, trading away Allen will allow Mobley to go back to his natural position. The Cavaliers are a second apron and the most expensive team in the league, so trading away Allen will give them more room to work within their cap. If they can get a Herb Jones type of player in return to give them a point of attack defender, I think the risk is definitely worth it. He has been pretty inconsistent this year and has struggled against the better teams in the league, especially rebounding and physicality-wise. Other players that could get traded are DeAndre Hunter and Lonzo Ball. The next team up is the Boston Celtics, and the player most likely to be traded by them is Anthony Simons. Outside of their core players, Simons has the most trade value on the team. Simons is on an expiring $27 million contract, and he's a 26-year-old scoring machine that averaged 22 points per game. that could be appealing to teams that struggle offensively, as looking for a scoring six-man. Players of Simon's caliber don't tend to go for that much. Trae Young went for pennies. Even Luka didn't go for nearly as much as he should have, so trading him could be risky. But he's the only player of note. Jaylen Brown and Derek White are untouchable. I'd assume Peyton Pritchard is close to untouchable. Jordan Welsh and Hugo Gonzalez are also untouchable, unless it's a blockbuster trade. So other than Sam Hauser, who wouldn't have a ton of value, I'd say it's Simons on the chopping block. Moving on to the Atlanta Hawks, and the player they're most likely to trade is Zachary Reese-Shea. Reese-Shea by far has the most trade value on the team, but his lack of year 2 leap as a former first overall pick is why he has found himself in trade talks. While he may not have the superstar potential as other first overall picks, he is still only 20 years old and does have a star upside, just not that superstar upside you'd be looking for. If the Hawks don't believe Reese-Shea will pan out as well as they thought, it makes perfect sense to capitalize on the value while he's still extremely young. He's shown flashes of potential to end last season, including games where he scored 38 and 36 points on a combined 27 from 41 from the field, which is 65%, and 11 from 22, which is 50% from free, while also playing great defense. The next team up is the Miami Heat, and their most likely trade candidate is Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins may not be the same player he used to be in 2022, but he's still a solid role player that's averaging 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists on 46% from the field and 40% from free, with great defense. His $28 million contract will be intriguing to a lot of teams, and it can also match a lot of bigger contracts if Miami wants to trade for a superstar, like Giannis or Ja Morant, to surround Bam Adebayo. He also has a $30 million player option next season. Wiggins is a player that every contending team could use. A player that isn't ball dominant and doesn't need the ball to be effective. He knows, understands, and buys into his role, and is a positive on the defensive end. Moving on to the Charlotte Hornets, and the player they are most likely to trade is Miles Bridges. The Hornets have a few guys that can get traded that aren't a part of their young core, like Josh Green, Pat Connaughton, and Grant Williams. But Bridges has a ton more value than those guys. Bridges is a 27-year-old that's averaging 20 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 3.5 assists. He's averaged 20 points in the last 4 seasons he's played. Bridges can be a solid scoring wing with his free-level scoring that can help a contender, but he does have a lot of weaknesses in his game, like his defensive inconsistency. He has the tools to be a good defender, but the effort and the focus can vary. His shot selection isn't the greatest also. He can settle for some very tough shots, and he can also force shots at times. And he's not an elite shooter. He can shoot, but he's not consistent. There's quite a few holes in his game that has gotten swept under the rug, playing on a bad Hornets team for his whole career. But he's an elite finisher and athlete, and is a good rebounder for his size. His best fit is a playoff team looking for a third option scoring wing that needs athleticism and someone who can finish plays. The next team up is the New York Knicks, and the player they're most likely to trade is Pacome Daddier. Daddier is a 20-year-old wing that projects as a do-it-all glue guy that brings high energy on both ends and has great athleticism, and he's just scratching the surface of his potential. Daddier makes good decisions with the ball and has a good feel for the game. He's a capable shooter that can hit the open three, but still has a lot of room for improvement. With his limited role in New York, a young team can take a swing on him in exchange for some more depth in their rotation. There's no reason he can't be another Josh Hart-esque player that every team that's contending for a title needs. The Knicks bench is very guard-heavy, so if they can flip him for a forward or two, that plays great defense, that's a massive win for the Knicks. Moving on to the Orlando Magic, and the player they're most likely to trade is Wendell Carter Jr. The Magic are a defensive-minded team, but do still struggle offensively. On the season, they sit in 16th on the offensive rating, and they sit in 12th on the defensive rating, so about middle of the pack on both ends, while being a few games over 500. So it's clear something has to change if they want to come out of the Eastern Conference. Carter is a versatile offensive threat that can score in the post, drive to the rim, and hit spot-up threes. He's a good rebounder and has good presence in the paint defensively, protecting the rim. But he does struggle when he's defending on the perimeter, like most centers. He also struggles with his shooting consistency, and he picks up some stupid fouls. Carter is a solid but not fantastic center, and a breakup after 6 years could be good for both sides. Nearly every team could use a rim protector that can stretch the floor, shooting 36% from three, can catch lobs, and that averages 12 points per game. The next team up is the Brooklyn Nets, and their most likely trade candidate is Michael Porter Jr. It's pretty much been confirmed that he will be traded. It's just a matter of when. His trade value has significantly increased since arriving in Brooklyn. They've already gotten a first-round pick just to take on his contract, so the value they can sell him for will be interesting to find out. Keeping him while his value is so high, keeping him on your team would just be stupid. But we know a lot of GMs can make some very questionable decisions. On the season, he's averaging 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists on 48% from the field and 39% from three. By far the best production he's put up in his career. Teams like the Pistons, Warriors, and Bucks are desperate for instant offense and can give up a lot to kickstart the Nets rebuild. Whether they get young players or draft capital in return for him is up in the air, but they should be happy with either. Moving on to the Indiana Pacers, and their most likely trade candidate is Obi Toppin. When Tyrese Halliburton gets back, the Pacers will be one of the deepest teams in the league, giving Obi Toppin's minutes on and off. He's an interesting archetype of player. He's extremely athletic, he can jump out of the gym and pretty much finish anything that's thrown up to him, and he can hit the occasional three, but hasn't turned into a consistent shooter, and he also struggles defensively. He has a lot of limitations, including defending one-on-one. His best fit is on a team that has ball-dominant guards that can hit him on the backdoor cut. He's under contract for the next 3 years at an average of $15 million. So he's a pretty expensive energy guy that's best as a 9th or 10th man off the bench. He would be a good fit on the Lakers, next to Luka, LeBron, and Reeves. But he doesn't match the defensive assignment they're looking for. They also wouldn't have that much the Pacers would be interested in. The next team up is the Detroit Pistons, and their most likely trade candidate is Caris LeVert. LeVert has been a major disappointment so far this season. He's averaging a career-low 19.7 minutes per game, and in those minutes, he's averaging 8 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists on 43% from the field and 34% from three. LeVert was meant to come off the bench and lead the second unit with his scoring, playmaking, and defensive ability. LeVert has a team-friendly contract at $14 million. A team that's not trying to contend can take on in exchange for a better and more consistent scoring option to help take some of the offensive load off Cade Cunningham. LeVert's a much better fit on a team that already has a lot of scoring firepower. Fortunately for Detroit, they don't really have that, so the experiment hasn't really worked out. While Duran has improved, he's still not that big of a threat outside of the paint. He can hit the occasional midi, but hasn't been hitting them consistently. Jaden Ivey is still coming back from a major injury last year so it will take some time for him to find his confidence again, and it's not the best fit next to Cade. Asar and Ron Holland have both struggled from the three-point line this season, so with Cade's having an off game, they're very reliant on their defense. Moving on to the Toronto Raptors, and the player they are most likely to trade is Immanuel Quickley. The Raptors are a point guard and maybe a better center away from being a contender for the title, and part of that is Immanuel Quickley. Not that he's a bad player, it's just his contract is huge for his production, and he's not a natural point guard. He's at his best when he's coming off the bench as a microwave scorer, not a facilitator. He struggles making easy reads, and for a starting point guard on a competitive team, it's just not going to cut it. He's still only 26, so he should still have a lot of value to possibly get a guy like Ja, or someone who has the ability to score with ease and also set up teammates when they need to. Getting a real point guard will make Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes' jobs a lot easier offensively. Other players that could be traded are RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl. The last team of the video is the Washington Wizards, and their most likely trade candidate is Cam Whitmore. Whitmore is still only 21 years old and can become a very solid scorer in the league, but he has not shown the potential we thought he had yet. I still believe he can become a solid scoring six-man, but it all comes down to opportunity, and he's on a team with quite a bit of depth, considering where they are seated in the standings. Unfortunately, he's sitting behind Bilal Coulibaly, Trey Johnson, Keyshawn George, Justin Champagnie, Chris Middleton, and Will Riley in the depth charts. Teams like the Hornets, Knicks, Kings, and Jazz that need more forwards, or just a young player in general, could make a play for Whitmore and give up something the Wizards could be very interested in. Chris Middleton is another player that could get traded, but I'd say they value his veteran presence too much to trade away. That's gonna end this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already, and comment who you think will get traded by every team at the deadline. The Western Conference video will come out soon. See you in the next one.